Do you think it's still like a relatively untapped social media for entrepreneurs? What's your take on the opportunity with LinkedIn?
Oh, 100%. The blue ocean opportunity is right here, and it probably will be a blue ocean for the next 3 years. We need to remember that LinkedIn, firstly, is the oldest social media platform and is the most untapped. And so when people say already that LinkedIn is dead and it's already saturated, I just see a lack of opportunity seeking. Their supply and demand on LinkedIn, it's unbeaten. Like, there is no supply and there's so much demand for content. So if you start posting even today or next week or even next year, you'll still be ahead of 99% of people that are trying to post on any other social media platform.
Today, I had the chance to interview someone that's increasingly synonymous with LinkedIn. Imagine going viral on social media while looking for work, then building a multiple six-figure business off of the back of that. And it wasn't TikTok or Instagram, it was through LinkedIn. This is the story of Lara Acosta, an entrepreneur, businesswoman, content creator, but much more than that, she wants to be recognized as someone who is a good person and a good daughter. She's a Latina based out of the UK, and some would argue that she would have the odds stacked against her, but she never let obstacles deter her from success. In fact, in this entire video, you'll see not only her self-confidence and how she was able to build it up, and the ability to be creative on a platform where most people just go in to check in, search for jobs, and then check out. She built a massive personal brand on LinkedIn and has taught over 500 people not just build a brand, but build a business off of their skill set, off of their knowledge, all with a lean team and with the resources available to them. Look, and if you're not already building a brand on LinkedIn, she's your go-to person. She knows how to do it. So consider it this way. This is going to be your masterclass on how to build a personal brand on LinkedIn and much more than that. Halfway through the interview, I even pushed back on a statement that she mentioned on a different podcast regarding college being a scam. So don't miss out on that. Without further ado, here's the interview. The world famous Lara Acosta. Such a pleasure to have you on the podcast and the YouTube. You have amassed an amazing following on LinkedIn. You've gained notoriety very quickly on YouTube. I want to hear all about your secret sauce, but one of the things that captivated me about this interview that you did with Chris Donnelly was that your intention was not necessarily to become an entrepreneur. What was that pivotal moment that kind of caused that trajectory shift in your life?
Well, firstly, thank you so much for waiting for me. I was literally just filming some YouTube videos. And so what was the reason why I started? I was just looking for a job. That's all I ever wanted. And so I ended up falling into this entrepreneurial journey by complete accident. And I think personally, that's what's made me so unique in the industry, because a lot of entrepreneurs start with this mega ambition and this ego to be seen and, you know, adored and become famous. And all I ever wanted was just a chance to get to work, you know? And I think you're Latino, I'm Latina, and I think this is a lot more common with Latinos, where we see a chance and we know it might be the last one, so we need to take it. So for me, I was just looking for that one golden ticket.
You and I share very similar experiences. I came to the United States with my family when I was 7 years old. I think you migrated to the UK a little older, but nonetheless, you kind of had that. Maybe it was a culture shock. I don't know if you experienced any of that. I did. And not fitting in, not really knowing my identity, feeling like, well, to put it lightly, that I was an outcast. Talk to me a little bit about your journey in self-discovery, because I feel like that plays a huge role in your story as you came up.
I never felt like an outcast when I moved away. I always felt like an outcast when I was at home in Mexico. And I think that's what's allowed me to, you know, be so good in England, because never once I felt out of place here. But when I was growing up, I always felt out of place, which is a little bit crazy. So I've never experienced racism here, but I experienced it more in Mexico.
Wow. Okay. The fact that you experienced that early on, though, I think put you at maybe, I don't know, maybe it's an advantage, right? Where now you're able to kind of maneuver different playing fields because you kind of felt out of place, so you know how to, what's the word, almost become like a chameleon. You can shapeshift and you can fit any situation. Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah. I've always called myself a chameleon, and it's like my favorite skill that I have, and I've curated it over time. And obviously, you don't know you're becoming one, but I'm able to walk into any room and like sort of like understand the vibe and kind of like shape shift into whatever position fits me best to kind of like handle the pressure, the people, whatever. And many people hate immigrants in the UK or anywhere else because they just simply don't settle and don't fit in. But I can go into any room and sort of like have that, which is an unfair advantage as an immigrant, because I don't stand out like as in people are mega aware that I'm just speaking Spanish with the Mexicans and I'm not really incorporating into the culture. I am the culture. And that has been the most beautiful thing that I've done here for myself, really taking in the English culture and kind of like adopting it. And like now I feel like I belong, and it's just so beautiful.
Yeah, it's important to obviously familiarize yourself with the environment, but also too to be able to stand out in a certain way, right? And I think you do that perfectly, where it's like you stand out enough, but you also are able to come into an environment and make people feel like I can approach you, I can talk to you. Clearly an unfair advantage that most people don't really know how has that played a role in being a 2X founder? Like
being a chameleon, you mean?
Yeah.
Honestly, like my first business was a complete accident. The second business is also like a result of my skill set. So luckily enough, I'm being able to monetize my own knowledge. And so being a chameleon is not necessary. I'm literally just being myself. And I think that's why it flows so well, because I've been able to capitalize on me. I am the capital here. I am the knowledge. And that is the most like amazing thing about building a one-person business and having a personal brand, to actually create that distribution for yourself. You're not tied to any other expectations beyond yourself and what you want to create. And I think I mentioned it on a podcast you watched with Chris Donnelly, where I've been feeling like I played business on easy mode, because essentially every single problem I create is mine. It's my doing, because it's like I decided to go all in on YouTube. So now I need to allocate time for it, and I need to hire this full team to create things, but it's my doing. It's not, I don't have to deal with HR. I don't need to do all of these things. It's all about me. And so that's allowed it to be on easy mode, but it's also on complete hard mode at all times as well, because it's like me all the time.
I'm going to switch and pivot a little bit here, because I like this question. I don't know if you've followed the YouTube channel School of Hard Knocks. They always approach these like mega successful, entrepreneurs. And one of the questions that the guy asks is, have you ever been broke before? So not to sound, repetitive or to even demean kind of your accomplishments, but as an entrepreneur, I've dealt with some serious like financial strain, right? Have you gone through that yourself yet?
No, I haven't been broke before. My parents are a good middle class family, and I was sent to England to study. So I've never been broke, but I have been broke as in I had no money myself. And so I was abroad living on the money I had from like whatever I could get, but like my parents weren't going to give me any more. So I've been broke as in I had no money beyond what I was given to eat at school and all of those means. But I've never been completely broke that I couldn't like get back on track. Because I'm only 27. So all my life was at school, and then I couldn't afford certain things, but I've never been that broke where it was like hell.
The reason why I bring that up is I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like the entrepreneur has this risk tolerance that can make you go from, I had an interview, this was last year, with this guy. His name's Gary Rabine, and I was producing the interview. I wasn't actually interviewing him. And the guy had made a company, like he was a paver. He was like a very middle class, like, blue collar worker here in the US, Midwest, learned to pave roads, learned to pave parking lots, etc. Grew one of the biggest paving companies in the US. Like, I don't know if you've heard of Walmart, but like Walmart parking lots, like huge, mega, mall parking lots, right? Like these are the size of contracts, $350+ million in yearly revenue. And then in a matter of like months, maybe even a year or two, made some poor decisions, bad moves. It wasn't like staring at him blink in the face where he was like actually like making bad decisions like that were evident. It was just like very minor missteps that took him all the way down to like negative 50 million in net worth.
Oh, wow.
And he had to rebuild back up. And this is a seasoned entrepreneur. And so I ask you that question, not necessarily to dig into your financial background, but more importantly, to understand kind of that risk appetite that you may have that other people are not necessarily familiar with. So you've taken risks. You obviously went the traditional route, right? You went to school, got your master's degree, but you mentioned you kind of stumbled upon entrepreneurship. Are there any other big risks that you feel like you've taken that were kind of scary to take at the time?
Well, I feel like moving away at 15 is like a big risk because I had no family abroad. I didn't have anyone I knew. I had no friends. English isn't my first language. I didn't know the education system. So I think that allowed me to become high risk tolerant because I had no other choice than to make it through. Because obviously my parents had worked so hard to get me into that situation, in that position. And only recently I found out that it actually was like the last thing they had, when I thought it wasn't. And so knowing that now and knowing how much I tried to make it work and knowing how it's worked out now, it's such an amazing feeling that I made it work and it all happened. So that is one thing. And again, even starting businesses, like trying my first social media marketing agency, then failing that, trying drop shipping, then failing that, trying Etsy stores, then failing that, trying crypto, then failing that. Like it didn't feel like a massive loss. It just felt like part of the journey.
Okay, that makes sense. So you started 4 different businesses or different models before you kind of landed here. Talk to us a little bit about that.
So yeah, my first business model was either dropshipping or social media. I get them confused. I think it was social media. I bought a course. Then I started my journey into like the social media management like agency style where, you get someone, you kind of like audit their Instagram. I was really onto Instagram anyway because I was scrolling on it. So my dad came up to me one day and he was like, "Hey, sweetie," it was like during the pandemic. He's like, he knew that I couldn't get a job. Like no one was hiring me. I didn't have anything. Like it just was rejection after rejection after rejection after rejection. And so my dad was like, "Hey, sweetie, I see these people talking about this new thing, social media marketing agency. Have you tried it?" And the idea of entrepreneurship just made me want to throw up because I just couldn't think of anything worse than starting a business that you're completely reliant on all the time, that you're building yourself. Like, absolutely not. I just wanted safety. Because again, as someone who's never really had it, because I was abroad alone, I just wanted something that was stable. Like, I've said this before, but like up until this year, I've never lived in a place for longer than 8 to 9 months. And so I just always craved stability, and entrepreneurship wasn't that. And so I was looking for a job. My dad was like, "Try this thing out while we're in the pandemic." And I tried it out. I hated it. I failed at it. But then I kind of like learned some new things. I found the power of Facebook groups because there was a Facebook group in that course. And it got me going into thinking differently because at that time I was so upset and depressed at like the situation during COVID. And it led me to finding self-improvement. And through that, then I started becoming more self-aware about business. Like, oh, I could actually potentially see myself doing this. Like the desire for growth and money became desirable, or like I was just simply aware of these world that I was so close to because all I wanted was to belong in this rat race. That to me was the best thing ever. Because, you go into a job, they give you insurance, they tell you what to do. You don't have to figure out anything by yourself. You get assigned this role and you just fulfill it. And to me, that just felt fine. Because we need to remember that not everybody wants to build their own thing, and I was one of those people. So then I started dropshipping. I also failed because dropshipping is not the biggest free thing in the world. Like people say, you actually have to spend a lot of money on ads that I didn't have. I ended up wasting my last, $500 to $1,000 on Facebook ads that I didn't even get to ship. Because when you're learning Facebook ads, you're obviously going to lose money because you don't even know how they work. And so you think that you're spending 50 pounds on like an ad, and then it ends up being like 50 pounds an hour. Which was really confusing, but luckily for me, I don't think I took it too personally. I just was like, okay, this failed. Never mind, I'm gonna go back to apply to new jobs. Then in the meantime, I tried Etsy store, I tried a Facebook ads agency because I had kind of like nailed it. I also failed at that because I didn't like it. Like none of these business models were suited to my interests. And that's why I failed at them. Most people say they are broken business models, but I just say that they're just not suited to my archetype. But other people are great at them.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I've chatted with guys that are doing like $100,000 months with drop shipping. I've spoken with SMMA agency owners that are doing $50,000 to $100,000 a month. And like, I didn't quite find that thing until I did video podcasting, right? And that was the thing that like landed me my first $200,000 client on LinkedIn before I even had a personal brand. And so I want to shift gears because I feel like that's a great segue where, I don't know about you, but like for me, you know, I'm 33, even though I don't look like it. You're 27, you're young. I feel like for most of our generation, or at least the people within the 25 to 35-year-old range, unless you're on LinkedIn looking for work, you're not really thinking of that as an entrepreneurial platform. Yet you and I have, I mean, you've had massive success. I'm not trying to compare myself there, but like you've really figured something out with LinkedIn where it's like, that's the new blue ocean, so to speak, as opposed to just like Instagram or TikTok. So do you think it's still like a relatively untapped social media for entrepreneurs? Like what's your take on the opportunity with LinkedIn?
Oh, 100%. The blue ocean opportunity is right here, and it probably will be a blue ocean for the next 3 years. Like, we need to remember that LinkedIn, firstly, is the oldest social media platform and is the most untapped. And so when people say already that LinkedIn is dead and it's already saturated, I just see a lack of opportunity seeking. So even if we were to talk about AI, like AI is consistently evolving and people are making thousands even today if they start with AI. And I think it's the same with LinkedIn. Like it's got 1 billion users and only 1 to 2% are posting every single week. In comparison to Instagram and YouTube, like their supply and demand on LinkedIn is on like it's unbeaten. Like there is no supply and there's so much demand for content. So if you start posting even today or next week or even next year, you'll still be ahead of 99% of people that are trying to post on any other social media platform.
Yeah, I agree with you, by the way. I think what I want to get out of this podcast for people is kind of like a taste of your masterclass, a taste of like what it would be like to work with you, to get the insights, the inside scoop of like all of that, because there's so much value that you have to deliver. And I think that people aren't even aware of the fact that like LinkedIn is a resource and a platform where people like you and I and really anyone who may not necessarily even have an entrepreneurial bend can start and scale like even just a one-person business. So what do you say to that person that's like either not considered entrepreneurship or is kind of just tiptoeing around but fondling around with like, you know, drop shipping or whatever other TikTok shop craze there is? Like, what would you say to that person?
Most people don't need to be entrepreneurs. They just need to start a side hustle. Like you don't need to start a business to make an income online. And I think this is where people get confused on the idea of a one-person business. A one-person business starts with a side hustle. Like I started my one-person business as a side hustle, and then it became my main hustle once I realized the opportunity and my interest in actually pursuing that. Like what scared me the most about entrepreneurship was the idea of having this big business that had to hire 1 million people, that had to pay payroll, HR, taxes, logo design, designers, website, all of these things. But then I realized that by posting content online on LinkedIn that educated one person on one micro problem, then I could sell one single thing that helped that one person that made me $1,000 every single month. And then those $1,000 became $2,000, $2,000 became $3,000, $3,000 became $100,000 business a year, just by accident and by me trying. And I didn't even realize it was a full business until probably like after a year where I was like still at university and I graduated and I realized, oh damn, like this is an actual business. Maybe I need to hire people. But the thing that made it work for me, I never saw it as a business. I saw it as a play to get money and a way to monetize my knowledge. And this is how normal people like you and me should be seeing it as, especially if you're entrepreneurial. Because again, not everybody is, but everybody should be having a side hustle that makes them money on things that they're actually interested about. Not just a business model that it's about, you know, accountancy or all of these boring things that we are made to believe are real businesses. You are a business if you try and monetize your knowledge.
I love that you said that. I think one of the biggest risks and I want to talk to you about something that you said on Chris's podcast about, how college is a scam. But I think relying on one single income is a scam. I feel like the riskiest thing that you can do is just bet on one employer to pay you indefinitely and think that like that is the safe route. Because you talked about stability, right? And I don't know about you, but like for me, it's like growing up, you go to college, you get a job, that's stable. And now seeing all these mass layoffs in tech and all sorts of other different companies, like it's like they could pull the rug under you. And if you don't have that side hustle, if you don't productize your knowledge or even your services, like you kind of, I went through it with my dad. He got laid off when I was a kid, and I was like, oh my gosh, that was like the most anxiety driving thing that we had growing up. And so when you mention that, I feel like that is kind of like that mitigation of risk instead of just relying on one income. But switching gears, I want to talk to you about you have a master's degree. You've gone to college. So you're not coming at it from a lens of like, oh, I don't do school, whatever. Like you actually went through and did all these things. Yet your position, at least then, was college is a scam. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think the educational scam is the biggest scam. Like, no, the education system is the biggest scam of all, because I came out of my master's degree not having a single tangible and actionable skill that I could monetize. I failed my social media segment of my master's degree. Like they failed me at it, and now my entire business is about it. So I don't think university at all is necessary, but I do have a master's degree because, again, I'm a Latina. That was for the culture more than for a business, or like for me, it was for my family. Like there is no biggest flex than your daughter having a master's degree from an international university. So that was para la cultura, like that was for the family, not for me, or like to get a job. And it was a safety net for if in case I ever had to go back to Mexico. A master's degree from Europe has quadruple the value of a typical degree in Mexico. So I think that people see me and they see me talk about the education system being a scam, and they see me having gone through the education system, and they kind of like judge it because they're like, then why did you do it? And they don't understand the pressure of being a first generation Latina that has to prove multiple different things, not just one. Like I was on this other podcast and this guy was like, oh, but you had the freedom of like choosing and like escaping the rat race. And I was like, all I wanted was to be in the rat race because that was safety for me. And so when we're looking at privilege, I think it's important to acknowledge the privilege that it was for me to even be able to do that thing for my family, and do it for myself, and do it again for Mexicans who are consistently judged and go through all of these trials and tribulations. And I was doing it for that, not for the end goal of like, I'm going to do a business in a degree in business to do a business. No, I'm doing a degree in business abroad to have this degree abroad just in case.
Yeah,
again,
like a plan B.
It's a golden ticket. It's a golden ticket. And like, I call it a scam. Yes, because it's like, it's not provided me anything. The way people portray the education system is like, you are meant to go get this degree, and then after this degree, they give you this degree, and then it's meant to unlock any doors. It never unlocked any for me.
I agree with you wholeheartedly, by the way, but I'm going to push back on this because I see the narrative online, and you and I are kind of in similar spaces. You have your own kind of education platform, right? And you have coached 500 people plus at this point in time in your entrepreneurial endeavors. And I find that it's so interesting because you said something that really resonated, which was like, those weren't the business models for me. Dropshipping, SMMA weren't the business models for my archetype. And instead of saying those were a scam, you said those weren't the business models for me, but you acquired a few set of skills that I feel like kind of trained you and unlocked something in you to get to that next level, even if it was like super subtle. There are a lot of people online that automatically think course creators scam, right? Or or cohort scam or an online education scam. And so there's kind of this narrative whereby like you come in and that's the one solution that's going to unlock everything. And so the reason why I want to push back is because like, given that you're in that space, like I feel like there's a lot to learn from just even being in the environment. Like you may not necessarily get a direct benefit from that, but like I know for me, like I don't use my degree. I went to school for advertising, and it was like I was a better marketer than half of the students there already, just because I was like doing music marketing for I wanted to be a musician. I wanted to be an artist. And so I was a better designer, better videographer, et cetera. And so I was like, I'm not learning anything from this. But the thing that taught me to appreciate that and value that was actually the people that were around me and how they motivated me. And I don't think I would have been able to get that if I was back home and learning things on my own. So like now, given kind of that insight, I actually encourage people to like try out certain communities, even if it's for the sake of like just the community in and of itself. And I know you have a thriving community. You've shown it on your like your Instagram and stuff like that, where it's like there's plenty of people in there. Do you think that perhaps maybe the value isn't so much just the knowledge, it's the community and the implementation when joining one of these programs, specifically yours?
Yeah, of course. Like there is value in the first course that I called a scam. Like I think I said it on that podcast that I wouldn't shame the person that charged me $1,000 for that course that didn't teach me anything because it told me one thing. And that one thing then led me to the next thing. And then that one thing led me to the next thing. So yeah. But I think saying like the education system is a scam is a good polarizing opinion to then lead to this exact same conversation.
I love that. That's good. So going back to personal branding right now, it's like the hot button topic, right? Outside of the fact that you've worked with like so many clients, do you think that you would have been able to amass the level of success had you not had a personal brand? And what do you think the advantage of having a personal brand is?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I think personal branding has allowed me to live the business game on easy mode because people find me at scale rather than me finding them. I always say that I never had to look for clients. They all came to me from day one. So LinkedIn literally built my entire business for me without me having to do much besides posting content.
Is it much harder now that everyone's starting a personal brand, or what would you say is like because for you that was kind of easy mode. You went viral very early on, but like it seems like there's a saturation right now. So what do you say to people who are like, I'm late to the train or I'm late to the bus or whatever?
Personal branding has existed for the longest time. Like I think people are... Saturation is also not a bad thing, by the way. Like it's actually the biggest signal of success and potential. So there's a lot of like limiting beliefs there. But personal branding is not saturated. Everybody has had a personal brand since they probably were born. Like personal branding is literally your like authority at scale and your influence at scale and like who you are at scale. So even when we were kids and our teachers would call us like naughty or like, smart, that is you building your personal brand. So it's literally who you are at scale. So no, it's not saturated. And even if it was, like there is still enough room for someone to stand out, whether it's on Instagram. Like I started posting on TikTok 2 weeks ago and I've already gone viral twice. So wow. The idea of saturation is a clutch for people not to try.
That's so good. You take more of that personal ownership, personal responsibility route, even though some may say that like you have the odds stacked against you. You are a Latina, you are a foreigner, you have all these things that are typically stacked against you, but you haven't used that. I hate to use this term because it's like controversial. You've never victimized yourself. You've always said like, I have the edge. What are your thoughts on that?
I used to be like this. I used to be super hyper feminist and I used to find an issue with everything. I used to really want to go into politics and like argue with everyone. And then I think I was 18 and I was getting really upset about something in the government in Mexico. And I was like, people are looking at me because of the color of my skin. And I was letting all of these narratives that I was seeing on social media, I was taking them personally, even though they weren't conversations about me. They were conversations other people were having. And it was impacting the way I was seeing the world. And it was making me viscerally angry. And then I went to my dad and he was like, I think I was talking about white privilege. And then I was like, yeah, white privilege is like the worst thing. And it's like affecting all of us. And then my dad looked at me And he was like, sweetie, but you have the biggest privilege of all. Like you have Mexican privilege. And so my dad shifted the narrative to stop being a fucking victim and start just acting like a winner. And from then, I stopped looking at all of these but I can'ts and started turning them in I can. And nowadays, even when people tell me like, oh, how does it feel to be a woman of color? I'm like, oh, sure. Oh, yeah, I am. Because I don't even think about it. Like, I don't even, how does it feel to be a woman in business? I don't know. I'm just a person in business. And having that in my head now as a default mechanism has allowed me to just simply elevate myself, like my consciousness, to another level where these conversations aren't even conversations in my day-to-day. And I think every single woman who listens to this and every single Latina who feels the pressure of like, oh, I'm this, so I must act like this, or like they have it against me because of this, stop thinking about it. If they do have something against you, you can't do anything about it. So you might as well not even think about it. And if it's affecting your daily life, then find a way to get out of that as quickly as possible and figure out how to do the same thing. Like, I'm sure I've been in rooms where people have looked at my skin color and they don't like it. And what do? I look at it. Do I feel comfortable here? No, I dip. I move as fast as I get there. So I think that's what I've learned.
You're clearly very confident in your skin. And I think that the fact of the matter is, like, self-confidence plays a huge role in an entrepreneurial success, entrepreneur success, I think. That's what I found across the board. What are your thoughts on that?
I wasn't like this. It's literally, it's new. This is like, this confidence literally developed. I think my frontal lobe developed when I hit 27, like 2 months ago. And I just stopped caring. But for the last 26 years of my life or so, I was extremely uncomfortable in my own skin. And if I was somewhat confident, it was me trying to become confident. And then ultimately, by being in business, I had to develop confidence, because the way you build it as fast as possible is by proving to yourself that you can do something very well. And so I've always felt like the black sheep, because obviously, like I said, in Mexico, I never fit in. And even when I felt so comfortable in the UK, I always felt wrong. And building a business allowed me to dive deep into the things that I liked, that people weren't liking. And from there, I built confidence just by simply becoming myself and then monetizing my interests. But confidence is not something that I was born with. I used to be really, really insecure.
I have 2 daughters. And so when you frame that in that conversation, I want to hear your thoughts, because I want to instill as much confidence in my daughters as I can. And so it sounds like you have a beautiful relationship with your dad, but
love him.
Coming from you, like, okay, besides the relationship that you have with your dad, what are a few of the things that you would tell your, not your 25-year-old self, your 20-year-old self, but like your 15-year-old self, your 10-year-old self, that you wish you would have heard either more of or coming from an older version of you?
You know what? I wouldn't tell her anything, because she's exactly where she needs to be right now to become the person that she is today. Like, I don't think anything that anyone would have told me would have worked, because I wouldn't have listened, because I was so set in my ways. And I think I needed life to humble me the way it did. I went through a lot of trauma, loads of like really bad decisions, also like trials and tribulations, and like really, really traumatic events. And those things are what made me who I am today. And I don't think I'd ever change anything about what I've experienced. I wouldn't tell myself anything, because again, it's exactly what I needed at the time. So that's my answer.
I love that. When I started interviewing like these 9-10 figure billionaires and millionaires, like I thought there was something like superhuman about them. And then I got to chatting with them, and I realized like there are people potentially watching this when we publish it, girls, 10, 15-year-old women that are like, oh my gosh, I could never be like her. She has it all together. And here in just the span of the last, like even just 10 minutes, you talked about how you had insecurities, how you didn't know what you were going to do in terms of like job security. And then found entrepreneurship. Like you didn't have it all together. And so I think it's beautiful to just like peel back the curtain and understand like there's just a human behind, you know, all the success. How important, go ahead. I know you want to say something. So I wanted to.
Yeah, I think people look at entrepreneurs that have made it, and I am guilty of this. And you're like, oh, this was your big vision. And I was talking to one of my friends, she's Mexican as well. She just had a talk at Harvard, and they asked her the same question, like, what was the vision? And she was like, there was no vision. I was just doing one thing, and then led to the other thing, and then led to the other thing, and now we're here. But I think people are so zoomed out, and an entrepreneur is always very zoomed in. And so there's never a big vision. I never had this vision of grandeur. I just wanted to make my parents proud. And in that, I became who I am. And I attribute a lot of my success to the untouchable love and unbreakable bond that I have with my family, especially my dad, because he believed in me so much that I had no choice to not believe in myself. Because if I wasn't doing it for me, I was gonna do it for him.
That's so powerful. I find that there's always someone that either you mentioned something very important in the beginning, which is like some people go on into entrepreneurship because they have this massive ego, and you know that's the route that they take. Life has humbled you. You've gone through this, but you still had someone speak life in your corner. But talk to me a little bit about kind of shifting gears here. What that level of humility has brought in you now that you actually have gone through the trenches, have come out the other side. Do you think you would be able to do what you're doing now totally ego driven, or has the humility kind of played a part in being able to amass the success that you've amassed?
So luckily for me, no matter how many followers I have, my mom will always come and humble me as quickly as like anyone else. Like my mom is my biggest fan, but she's also my biggest critic. And having a Latina mother, hopefully a lot of Mexicans or like Latinos are watching this, you know how they are. Like they don't care about anything. Like they're like, do you have a husband? Do you have money? And are you going to move the fuck out of our house? Like when are we going to stop paying your bills? So whenever I grew my following, then she's like, oh, are you making money from that? No? Okay, I don't care. So I think having such a loving relationship with my dad and like a very much, you know, black cat energy relationship with my mother has allowed me to never settle and never take anything for granted and never feel like, oh my God, I have like 200,000 followers. I'm so famous. Like no one touched me. Like at the end of the day, I have to come home or call my mom and show my work. And if I don't have anything to show to her in like Stripe payments or like anything that I gift her, then I have nothing to show. And so that is how I've remained humble, by having a very, you know, strong mother.
Yeah. If it's not the mom, it's always like la tia, or you know,
yeah.
Your Latino family is always gonna like somehow or another just like humble your ass. It's just facts of the matter, right?
But it's great. I think it's given me a lot of edge against a lot of people that, you know, would get so drawn in this attention economy and like, oh my God. I remember someone told me like, oh, it's your birthday. Like, are you getting overwhelmed by all of these birthday messages that you're getting from people? And I'm like, no. Like, I'm just waiting for my mom to call me. But yeah. You
mentioned that some of the most successful people you know are zoomed in. And so it's just one step in front of the other. What's next for you? I know you've obviously launched, you know, kind of this big business, in my opinion, that's obviously attracting a lot of people to it and kind of getting to know you for the first time, but also to nurture your existing audience. But what's that next big thing that you're looking for or forward to?
Becoming a better daughter. Like I've said this before, and I'm always like so curious about how can I become a better person and, you know, daughter, friend, whatever, because I've noticed that the better human I become, the better I can perform as an entrepreneur, not the other way around. And for the last 3 years, not many people know this, but like I locked myself into a room for like an entire year. I didn't have a social life. I didn't really speak to my parents. I didn't really have friends. And so over the last 2 years, I've been like sort of like slowly coming out into reality, meeting people and all of these things again, and kind of like realizing how little time I've got left with my family. And so like I know you interviewed Sahil Bloom, And I remember hearing one podcast of him where he tells you how many times, like how many visits you have left with your family. And that really shocked me last year. I did the maths, and it was like about 20 times I'll see my parents again. And that really frightened me. So I'm obviously trying to scale the business as much as I can and like do all of these things. But the most important thing is like, I just want to be with my family. And yes, business, growing as fast as possible, whatever that is, I don't know. But growing it as fast as possible so then I can spend as much time as possible with my family.
It's funny you say that because there's like a double-edged sword that I have, you know, as a dad and a husband. It's like the reason why I work so hard till 1 a.m. in the morning, wake up at 6, is so that I could provide a better life for my kids. But then Sahil comes and humbles your ass and says like, you know, you should spend more time with your family. And I'm like, I find like maybe this is a scam. What do you think about this? Work-life balance.
My dad is an entrepreneur, and that's why I had such an abrupt view of entrepreneurship, because I never really saw him. He was always either working at his 9 to 5, and then when he became an entrepreneur after, I also didn't see him much. And do I regret it as a daughter? Like, do I hate him for it? Absolutely not. Because I know that he worked so hard to provide me with a stable life. And then I know for a fact that he spent any single spare second that he had with me. And I think it makes me appreciate him more, because I know that he could have been doing any other thing, but he chose to spend his free time with me. And I think that's why I love him so much, because I know how much he sacrificed for me and still did a lot for me in his own way, you know? So I don't, as a daughter of an entrepreneur who is a workaholic, I love him for it, if not even more, now that I'm able to like kind of like see it, you know, from his end.
Yeah, that's a guilt that I carry because I overwork myself, and sometimes I lock myself in my room, kind of like what you're saying. You're finally getting to see the light and getting to meet new friends and new people. And I'm in here like, you know, grinding and working, and I find that guilt. But something that you just said and something that Sahil said in the interview was that when you're present, be present. Like even if it's 20 minutes or an hour, just be present.
I don't have a single bad memory with my dad. Like, I think he was always so present. My dad is not always on his phone, even till this day. Like, he will make time for me. I always know that I am his main priority in his life, even to this day. Like, he will drop anything for me. I'm 27 now, and he still would. Like, I call him, and he's in a meeting, he'll pick up. He'll be like, I can't talk right now, but are you okay? Yeah, cool. And I think that is what a good parent does. It's not that you need to spend the time with I guess for me, talking to my dad, it would be like, I don't blame you for it. Like I respect you even more. And I think that's why I adore my dad. And even that, like seeing the discipline that he had, like he's instilled it in me as well. Not by saying me, just by me seeing it. So even when it came to hard work, I didn't know any less because that's what I saw. So for me, it was like, like working till 1 a.m. Sure. Like my dad worked till 5 and then his sleeps are like, yeah, like that's normal, no? So I think that is also very important. How you act is how your kids will behave rather than what you tell them to act. So if you're acting like a hardworking person and a high value person, leading with kindness, then your kids will also have those values.
I love that. I don't think I have any more questions for you because I could drag on the conversation for forever. I have a million questions for you, honestly, but I want to be respectful of your time. Outside of what we chatted about today, is there anything else that you really would love to cover for an audience of maybe hearing you for the first time and want to learn more about you?
I think that if you want to change your life, you need to go on LinkedIn and start writing about your interests. A lot of people are scared of being seen, and a lot of people feel invisible right now. And I think there is no worse feeling than feeling invisible in a place where everybody else feels like they're getting a lot of promotion. If you run a business and you feel like your competitors are getting ahead and you're actually better than them, use that power to actually promote your knowledge. Like everybody can actually teach something very valuable, and you can literally change someone's life.
Yeah, no, that's so true. Well, Lara, I appreciate you for your time. This is awesome.